thoughts, opinions, and general overall shade thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your host, Jason Beck, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us.
Me up at night.
Yeah. Good morning, you guys. It is Thursday. Jenny Beth should be joining us here anytime, probably too. But anyways, good morning. It is Thursday, March 19th, and today is National Farm Rescuer Day today. I feel like that would make a good show. You know, like bar rescue, but farm rescue.
Chavez into it now. That just confuses everything today.
Well, no. I'm just saying. I think that would make a really good show. You know, like bar rescue, farm rescue. That would be awesome show. I would watch that.
I would watch it.
Yeah. See what I'm saying? Even Nate would watch it.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, that sounds intriguing.
It does.
There's a lot of things I think that go on in that style, in that area of life, where so many people have an opinion on it, but how many people actually know it?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I could just imagine too, like the scaling of them showing, oh, you know, they have 1,000 acres of this and and if we scale that up to oh, bro, I could totally see the computer animation CAD drawings for their farms and stuff. Oh, I could totally envision that. Would be good. It's also National Ag Day, so shout out to Ag, Big Ag. You know what I'm saying? Because without Big Ag, none of you would eat.
And that's a cannabis thing too, you know, since we're a cannabis focused program, right?
That is.
We've got, you know, basically when a large scale farm is approaching local government and working with them, they're being treated as another ag operation. Generally, their, you know, electricity and water rates, for instance, generally get adjusted to ag and all sorts of other fun stuff.
Not necessarily for indoor, but yeah, but for general, yes, you're right. It's also National Poultry Day. Shout out to
keep it on the farm.
Yeah, shout out to chickens, bro.
Yeah, central theme here.
Yeah. It's also Absolutely Incredible Kids Day today.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I know I'm an incredible kid. So I can't speak for everyone else.
Of grandeur right there. I've raised a bunch of them, and they all thought they were incredible different times, and I thought they were pains in the asses, and they thought the same of me. But we all got through it, and they're decent human beings.
You know the variable in that, Dale. The variable in that is you said that they thought to where I actually know. That's the discerning factor in all of that.
Hey, got to keep it going. Wu-Tang is for the children, guys.
Yeah. Yes. It's also National Backyard Day. Shout out to people that have backyards. You know what I mean? I have a backyard, and I have an Americado tree in the backyard. You know what Americados are, Nate?
It sounds like an avocado, and I don't want to step into a trap. So you can just take over from here.
You're right. They are avocados that are grown in America. Those are Americados.
Oh, jeez. Now the border makes a difference in how they taste or something.
They do. They taste way better. Way better.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I promise.
America had to co-opt the name of the avocado.
Americados, yes.
No.
Yes.
Only Jason did, but he's trying to make it a trend.
I am America, bro. I am America.
I'm not sure if that's going to take, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you.
It does. It already has. You guys don't understand. Once I said it, it's already done. You know what I'm saying? It's done. You know what I mean? Whether or not
grandeur, right?
I'll keep my ears open, but I was today years old when I heard the term Americano.
Whether you want to utilize it or not, that's totally your individual choice. But the fact of the matter is, it is what it is. It's also National Certified Nurses Day today.
Shout out to the nurses. Yeah, we need them.
Yeah. National Let's Laugh Day.
All right.
I can't believe none
they
of you
loaded
guys,
today up.
I can't believe I can't believe you didn't. None of you, laughed at any of that. It's National Laugh Day. It's very sad.
I'm honestly overwhelmed by by the mix of different days here. I got one more. The second to last day of winter, technically, right?
I got one more.
So they needed to just load it up, right? This is sorry guys, you only had one season for all these.
We need a day for chickens in the backyard. That'll put two of the stories together.
It's today.
Well, it's today. It's National Poultry Day. That's whether or not they're in the backyard, on the farm, in the chicken coop, wherever, you know what I mean? Or, out on the range looking for a rooster, And, last but not least, Nate is biting his tongue on National Laughter Day. It's also National Chocolate Caramel Day.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I love me some chocolate caramel.
Something we can all get behind.
Yes,
all right.
yes. And thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website, www.high9news.com. So welcome to everyone joining us from any one of those platforms. And, I wish Stone could have been with us today. It's unfortunate. Because there's a study, you guys. Delta-8 THC may dramatically slow nicotine metabolism, raising smoking cessation potential, you guys, they say. A new study published in Drug Metabolism and Disposition found that Delta-8 THC can sharply inhibit the body's ability to break down nicotine, suggesting it may have potential as a smoking cessation aid. Interesting. Conducted by researchers from the University of Buffalo, the study examined how Delta-8 THC affects CYP2A6, the primary enzyme responsible for metabolizing nicotine into cotinine. Tobacco use remains the leading cause of preventable death worldwide, and nicotine's addictive effects are closely tied to how quickly it is processed by the body. In this study, researchers found that Delta-8 THC potentially inhibited CYP2A6 mediated nicotine metabolism, while Delta-9 THC showed no significant inhibition. According to the findings, Delta-8 THC acted as an irreversible inhibitor, meaning its effects on the enzyme were not easily reversed once the interaction occurred. The strength of that inhibition varied somewhat depending on a person's CYP2A6 genotype, and indicating that genetics may play a role in how strongly Delta-8 THC alters nicotine metabolism. Using a static modeling, the researchers estimated that an oral 10 milligram dose of Delta-8 THC could increase nicotine plasma exposure by 189%. Even larger increases were projected with 20 milligram and 40 milligram doses, and the study also found potential interactions with inhaled Delta-8 THC at doses of 70 milligrams or higher. Researchers say the findings are the first to identify Delta-8 THC as a potent and irreversible inhibitor of nicotine metabolism to cotinine. And because slower nicotine metabolism can, in some cases, reduce the urge to smoke by prolonging nicotine's presence in the bloodstream, the results suggest that Delta-8 THC may warrant further study as a possible smoking cessation aid. The researchers caution that more investigation is needed, particularly to better understand safety, dosing, and how genetic differences may influence its effects. And still, the study points to a new and potentially important line of research involving Delta-8 THC and nicotine dependence. The study concluded by stating the following: in conclusion, the present study is, to our knowledge, the first to demonstrate an irreversible inhibition of nicotine metabolism by Delta-8 THC THC in vitro, highlighting its potential as smoking cessation agent to optimize therapeutic outcomes while minimizing toxicity. Genotype-informed approaches involving CYP2A6 will be essential, and ultimately advancing delta-8 THC towards clinical application will require careful characterization of its pharmacokinetics, as well as incorporation of hepatidic uptake transporters into physiology-based pharmacokinetic DDI pharmacodynamic models to refine dose recommendations across genetically diverse populations, they say. Wow, look at this. I bet Stone had a pretty easy time quitting smoking when he quit smoking because all this Delta-8, but what do y'all have to say about this?
I'm not sure I jump on the same bandwagon they do. If I understand, once you get nicotine in your system, you've got Delta-8 there, the nicotine stays there and doesn't get metabolized by the liver. And Nate, I'd welcome you jumping in this because it sounds like Delta-8 keeps nicotine levels high in the brain. You get the sensations you get from nicotine, and Delta-8 prevents that from being, physiologically metabolized and kicked out of the system.
It's going to have a give and take dynamic for sure. I'm not nearly, it's fascinating what we've learned so far, but I'm not nearly educated on the subject to know what aspect that would have. Yes, slower metabolism slower metabolizing of nicotine is going to have some level of benefit. But with regards to dopamine production, that's going to be all over the place if you have these lasting amounts in there. I'd want to know what, I'd want to know how much, I'd want to know other important aspects of what could also weigh on this metabolism, because I'm fairly sure that basic stuff like exercising too will also metabolize nicotine a lot faster. And so there's a lot of questions at play that from a supplementary standpoint that might be useful, but how much more information is in the way before we actually realize it? It's a neat door into some potential studies. I mean, that's about all we can say, though. I mean, and you're right. There's could be negative aspects. I'd assume a give and take kind of scenario.
I think the biggest negative aspect is you're having to consume Delta-8 to curb your nicotine craving.
Okay, this is a broader idea for me, and I have a habit of going on, as everybody knows, but I'll try to keep this sentence short.
Okay.
We should absolutely be exploring everything else that cannabis has to offer in terms of all of the other cannabinoids. It is such a shame that we pigeonhole cannabis to this THC product when there's so much more that could be offered to us from a supplement standpoint and just from understanding the plant and knowing it better and its relationship with our body. And in this sense, Delta-8 to me is no more scary than 50% of the other supplements or biohacks somebody's willing to put in their body.
Interesting. Well, on that, Nate, I think that's a good way for us to move on to our first commercial, and we are going to be right back.
As bad as Democrats,
the backstabbing rhino Republicans,
President Trump has fought and delivered, but liberal young Kim is a Trump hater. Kim voted to censure President Trump, but voted against censoring Adam Schiff.
I don't work for President Trump. I will oppose him in the strongest terms. I'm not running for the party of Trump.
Republicans proudly stand with President Trump, but not Trump-hating liberal young Kim. Americans for Security is responsible for the content of this advertising.
What?
Can you explain what I'm there? So when you draw 8, right? When you draw 8, it's a singular thing. Like there is no break in it, as opposed to a 9, there is a break in it.
But see, you've obviously never studied chemistry, and specifically organic chemistry.
I actually have.
Don't mean shit. Is it a benzene ring? Is it not a benzene ring? These are the bonding sites, Jason, not a number, an Aramaic number.
I'm just saying, Dale. I'm just saying, Dale.
I know you said it, but it tells me you don't know what you're talking about. So
I don't. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know exactly.
All right,
what I'm talking
numerology
about.
versus chemistry. That's I don't have too much of a place in that conversation. What do you got next for us, Jason?
All right. Well, opponents failed to get enough signatures for the referendum to block Ohio's new weed law hemp ban, you guys. They totally failed. Opponents of Ohio Republican lawmakers' attempt to ban intoxicating hemp products and change the state's voter-passed adult-use cannabis law failed to collect enough signatures to put a referendum on the ballot this year to block it. Ohioans for Cannabis Choice would not say how many signatures they gathered, and they needed to collect 248,092 signatures and also needed to gather 3% of an individual's county's gubernatorial turnout in 44 of Ohio's 88 counties to get on the November 3rd ballot. In a quote, "Unfortunately, we were not able to overcome a truncated time period to give voters the chance to say no to government overreach," Dennis Willard, spokesperson for the Ohioans for Cannabis Choice, said in a statement. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost initially rejected the referendum summary language in January, but approved it in early February, and after Ohioans for Cannabis Choice made changes to the language. The plan was to submit the collected signatures to Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose on Thursday for him to verify the signatures, and this was the deadline to submit signatures since Ohio Senate Bill 56 takes effect on Friday, and it will ban intoxicating hemp products, including THC-infused beverages. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine signed the bill into law in December after he had been urging the lawmakers to do something about intoxicating hemp products for the past nearly 2 years. And on the federal level, Congress voted in November to ban products that contain 0.4 milligrams of total THC per container when they voted to reopen the government. But previously, the 2018 Farm Bill said hemp can be grown legally if it contains less than 0.3% THC. There is a 1-year implementation delay for the federal hemp ban, but states can create their own regulatory framework before then, and Ohio's new law will change Ohio's marijuana law by reducing the THC levels in adult-use marijuana extracts from a maximum of 90% down to a maximum of 70% cap THC levels in adult-use flower to 35%. And prohibit smoking in most public places. It will prohibit possessing marijuana in anything outside of its original packaging and criminalizes bringing legal marijuana from another state back to Ohio. The legislation also requires drivers to store marijuana in the trunk of their car while driving, and in a quote, "Marijuana will be recriminalized in Ohio. Businesses will close, workers will lose their jobs, and consumers will be denied their right to products they should be able to purchase," Willard said in a statement. Ohioans voted to legalize cannabis back in 2023 for adult use sales started back in August of 2024, and sales totaled more than $836 million in 2025. In a quote, "Voters overwhelmingly supported legalizing cannabis in 2023. It only makes sense that Governor DeWine and state lawmakers should go back and ask those voters if they want to ban hemp and recriminalize marijuana. We know, and our elected leaders know, the answer would be a resounding no." Ohio Cannabis Coalition and the Ohio Cannabis Coalition and Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, the group behind Issue 2 on the 2023 ballot, opposed the attempt referendum, and Ohio House Speaker Matt Hoffman, Republican from Lima, said he was not surprised the referendum failed to get enough signatures. In a quote, "This would have had two sectors of the same community, essentially, as we say, the hemp guys and the marijuana guys fighting against each other. I don't think it was viable from a financial standpoint for them to referendum that bill. Referendums are rare, and the last one that passed in Ohio was when voters overturned an anti-collective bargaining law back in 2011, you guys. Well. These guys totally failed to stop the ban in Ohio, and it looks like all of the hemp products are only going to be able to be sold in dispensaries. And on top of it, they're lowering the concentration caps from 90% to 70%. And the flower percentages, nothing to be sold over 35%. But Nate, I'm glad you're a lab guy, because as I'm probably sure you will agree with, that if the state passed this, then that's going to be the mile marker of what any lab will pass any product with, regardless of what the numbers actually state. What do you have to say about this?
It's neat that, they're helping to create a distinction between those things. You know me. I'm not all about regulation in its darkest of forms, especially. But I do strongly believe that certain things need to be tested and need to be tested well.
Mm-hmm.
The 35% thing is honestly is silly AF. This is something that, as a testing guy, I deal with literally like every day.
Yeah.
Which is people hyper focused on THC. And I can't imagine one other industry. Like, could you imagine like a guy who works at a sugar company telling that, his lab guy that he needs to show higher sugar content in his candy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like, it's ludicrous. Like what people are asking for. The 35% numbers are the result of runaway lab standards. There's very, very few strains that test at that. So few that to create any kind of regulation around 35% seems performative, or it seems like you're responding to something that was performative. Like doesn't have much to do with science. Generally, here's how it goes: is the state will visit labs and say, you better show me how you do this type of calculation for your THC. I see this strain here. This was a 32% strain according to you. Show me how you did this. And then they'll do the equivalent of looking over their shoulder. And if the lab's unable to perform that same, I'm oversimplifying a bit, but if the lab's unable to perform that same action and show the same numbers, then the state goes, aha, you're breaking the law. You're not allowed to do it like that. They go around and they scramble labs. Labs become aware that they don't, that the state is sniffing around. They adjust their behavior and everything drops. The state, confident in their ability to have made a difference, looks away, and you sort of have the cats are away, the mice will play scenario, and the labs start just trying to top and stack over one another until you get these scenarios where people are now battling things out in the 30s, and a number like 30% versus 35% is actually going to make a difference in the consumer base. Whereas, as I mentioned, this is ludicrous and silly AF, because that's not even a good quantifier of quality in the first place, is THC. That's like saying your alcohol is your liquor, your spirit is even higher alcohol, which obviously doesn't stand up to reason, because that usually makes a cheaper, worse type of alcohol, not a better one. And newsflash, the worst cannabis out there, in my opinion, is the stuff that's really high in THC, like actually high THC and low in flavor. It's harsh. It's the moonshine of cannabis, and it's nothing that I deserve to put into my body. I love myself more than that,
Nate, I know what the most popular testing number is going to be in Ohio. And if I had a retail store, every product is going to say this number, every flower product. Are you ready?
No, but go on.
34.99%.
Yeah. That is weirdly accurate. And yes, you're going to see flies bouncing against the ceiling, because what other choice do they have?
Yep, exactly.
Well, the problem is they don't want to discuss the assumptions they're basing all this on. That if you have higher THC, somehow it's more harmful to people, or more people are becoming dependent. I mean, what is the underlying rationale for limiting this stuff? In alcohol, the first run through a distiller is a 151.
Yeah.
Okay? That was a real easy line to draw, rather than go back and keep increasing it to pharmaceutical grade. That makes sense, okay? But for cannabis, it's absolutely makes no logical sense if you understand the science of this, or even the addiction or purported addiction of THC to human beings. I'd like to know a little bit more about why they think limiting at 70% when you can titrate as much as you want. One puff at 70, what's that? Half a puff at 90. And even if it's 30%, that's what, 2 or 3 puffs to get the same titration level in your brain. It just doesn't make logical, medical, or physiological sense. But yet people continue to want to do this. And people want to jump on the same bandwagon. And what I support is, when the legislature can't get shit done, take it to the people in these referendums or votes of initiatives. And if you can't get it accomplished, then maybe you need to go back and calculate how you get people to jump on board with you to change these laws. Because from the uneducated standpoint, it makes sense to limit this. If it's still a bad thing and we make it less potent, that seems like a good thing. It's not, it makes sense to lazy thinkers, but it doesn't make sense to those of us who know some things about, neurophysiology and how the liver breaks this stuff down, things like that. It's an example of you can lead people around through stupid reasons and get them to do all sorts of things.
Yep. Fair enough. Well, Ohio, you guys failed, and we're going to watch and see what happens. And on that, we're going to roll right into attorney at law, Mr. Dale Schafer. Dale has been an attorney since the Reagan administration. He has represented physicians, hospitals, insurance companies, cops, corrections officers, and for the last 25 years, he specialized in cannabis law. He served a 5-year federal prison sentence for helping medical marijuana patients and managed to save his law license. He is blunt. He doesn't smoke them, though, because they're ratchet, they're nasty, and they turn your teeth yellow and other things yellow, but he is honest, and he's unconcerned with public opinions, your opinion, and anyone else's opinion that wants to identify any sort of way. But he will show you how he can defy gravity by pissing up a rope. It is your favorite Tio Loco, and you can now find him at his own law office at the law office of none other than Dale Schafer.
Good morning, everybody. And for those in the East Coast, early afternoon, it's Tio Loco and Jason's favorite full of shiticus.
Yeah.
Here we go. I was looking for a story yesterday, and Marijuana Moment had one that just made me laugh. It's by Kyle Yeager from the 18th. And the highlight or the headline is high marijuana taxes don't effectively deter use. Study shows contrary to New York Times editorial board claim. Now, it makes me laugh because we've talked about this so many times, that the assumptions people make about cannabis, they want to take, say, nicotine. And even alcohol might fall in this, but they want to take nicotine and say, well, gee, we jacked up the taxes on cigarettes and we saw a decrease in use. Okay. If you think the world is binary, you might be able to argue that. Fortunately, the world is not binary. Nicotine is, if not the most, it's one of the most addictive substances, however you want to define that term. It's one of the most addictive substances out there. But when you're going through your drug sickness and withdrawing from it, it's not near as hard to do as it is with heroin or morphine. But to take discussions like that and to try to apply them to cannabis shows that you really don't know what you're talking about, and you've made some assumptions about how the brain and these habit-forming drugs work. Because even after Prohibition, when the mafia was controlling the alcohol industry, it didn't take long for the legal alcohol industry to come out everywhere and compete effectively with the black market. And so the black market shrunk to the point where, you can still buy moonshine without paying taxes, but, you can go to the liquor store or the Stop and Rob and buy alcohol everywhere. So what we're trying to get politicians to understand, and even the people who write for the editorial board, is that there's a robust black market out there. When I say robust, if you're in the halls of Congress or some legislature, you can walk out and go around the corner and buy a bag of weed in virtually every country, every state in this country. So if you think that raising taxes on weed is going to stop people from using these products, you are smoking crack. They're going to go to the black market. We're trying to keep them from the black market, but the black market is just there waiting to take their money and provide them with products. So this is juvenile thinking, and I don't know how else to put it. People who believe this stuff either got dropped on their heads a lot as children, or they really have emotional beliefs that need to be tethered apart a little bit, because we are dealing with an entirely different product here. It affects the brains differently. The people have recognized this is a malum prohibitum law, and if you can't get enough people to follow it, you can't enforce it. And you haven't been able to enforce marijuana laws for so long now that people just chuckle. at law enforcement trying to come back and recriminalize this stuff. And the thought that raising taxes on this is going to deter people from using it is just actually not there. And it's incredibly stupid for people who try to claim they're intelligent to keep, hoping for a different result, but doing the same thing. That is the definition of insanity. I'm going to throw this back at you guys for a comment, because this just continues to repeat itself. Let's continue to tax it somehow and somehow make this industry better. It doesn't, and it just gives the black market more money. What do you guys think about this?
You're 100% right, Dale. I mean, that's really, you are 100% right, because the more that they raise taxes, the more people just want to buy things from the street, because why do I want to go to a store and support a local business when I can buy something for half the price or 2/3 of the price or whatever? And
we saw that fail amazingly in California, like beautiful scenario of failure, like textbook failure. Quote from the article, because I was reading through it. So from the New York Times editorial, if a joint costs $10 instead of $5, it would mean a lot of extra money for someone now smoking multiple joints a day and may change that person's behavior, it said. It would not be a big burden for somebody who only smokes occasionally. Wow. Just to quote the parlay of the internet user, tell me you've never actually talked to somebody who smokes cannabis without saying exactly that, right? Holy crap, the level of tone deafness that's involved while somebody is also trying to pass policy editorial influence policy, right?
Well, this is the thing.
Absolutely bizarre.
I agree with that statement to some degree, because if you have someone who is just going to buy something that's not really a smoker at all, they're probably not going to care about the $5. And at the same time too, but they're also probably not going to have a regular plug to where they know how to get it cheaper. So that's the main reason that they're going to the store. But the whole point of creating a regulatory style market and regulated marketplace is to bring all of those transactions into the main atmosphere of a storefront. And so just by that whole statement alone is a major deterrent from the whole point of having cannabis stores in the first place.
It said in the second paragraph of Dale's article that this would be taking people away from tested cannabis, which is really the underlying theme that you would get here, is that they're basically feeding the black market. Again, in California, we saw this done to where, what's a conservative estimate? 75% of the cannabis sales at this very day go to the black market simply because we're being taxed into oblivion. And here we have somebody who seemingly would have decades worth of information telling you how this stuff goes down, and yet has the gall to write an article suggesting that the opposite would happen.
And you know what?
Bizarre.
You know what, too, Nate? I'm willing to put money. I would put money on this, that the average consumer doesn't care about testing whether or not stuff is safe and clean and yada yada yada. The average customer doesn't care about that at all. And yet these states want to market that as the reason why you should go to a store and pay a higher price. It's the most asinine argument to me, because it's we used to smoke stuff with seeds and stems that smelled like gasoline that had just been smuggled through someone's gasoline tank, and we never had no health issues from it. So why are we so worried about contaminated cannabis now all of a sudden that it's gone mainstream? It's just totally ridiculous.
It's education here. So if you tell me that you went to a local stadium and somebody made you some hot dogs, or whatever type, vegan or otherwise, off of the top of a shopping cart, and you ate some of those hot dogs and now you're sick, what would we like?
They have those on every corner in LA. They have those on every corner in LA.
And if you as a consumer were to eat those, what would your friends say to you? Of course you got sick, right? What? You're going to some place who doesn't actually have any need to obey by any health food regulations, as long as we're talking about that. And essentially what you've done is through taking advantage of people through lack of education, showing them a cheap option in what supposedly they could do, i.e., here's how you avoid taxes for this interaction. Through all of this, we're just basically reinforcing bad behavior, and all you're doing is just punishing the least educated people out there. Like that doesn't fly for me.
It definitely
Well,
does not
what
fly.
bugs me, every time I go buy something at a dispensary, I take a look at the taxes they charge me. And then what I understand about where this tax money is going is they're just shoveling it into the pockets of people that really aren't providing anything. You know, I don't mind paying taxes, but when there's no accountability what you get, and they're charging me 15, 20% taxes based upon, or even more, based upon the location here in California, it begins to irritate me. And I know plenty of people that grow or just grow on their hillside, and they give me weed all the time. I don't need to go to these stores. I try to go there to support people that are clients or other industry, movers trying to get this up and running. But it really bugs me to look at how high our taxes are, and then to look around and go, okay, well, what are we getting for this? And why would I give it to you where you waste it, as opposed to going, getting it from my friend on the hillside or somebody else who's grown it, and you smell it, sounds good, doesn't make me sick. What are we doing here now?
Yep.
The industry is just so corrupted right now. It really is hard not to, want to smack somebody who continues to perpetuate this worthless cycle that's not solving anything. The taxes do not fix these problems, especially when there's unaccountability for the taxes. And it's a theme that continues to bug the average person in this state. And I think that some initiatives in California might get passed pretty quickly to go in and stop some of this nonsense. But, politicians don't seem to want to do that. And, we're right in the middle of a campaign here, as Jason well knows, in California, where you're looking at these people and you're going, what is your plan? You want to just keep charging us more taxes that's why we became a country. We told the king and parliament, you can kiss my ass, we ain't paying your taxes. So understand, people are getting upset like that. And it's not just the weed tax, because the weed tax is one that's very, emblematic of the problems we have here in California, overtax and overregulation. It's everywhere you look. We keep shoveling money out there for problems, and the problems just persist. Okay, so now what are we doing here? Can we get to a point where someone has a plan to fix this? And my argument is I don't think so, because the people who pay for elections to get people elected don't want to change it.
Yep. Shout out to Penny Pebble Ripplers, who says a vegan hot dog is a bun, basically, Nate. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And Savagely 001 says, make tar and feathers great again. And I'm so about that life. I'm so about that life, man. This overtaxation is theft, and there's no other way around it. We are getting fleeced by our government every step of the way, and it's not just here in California. It's in pretty much every single state throughout the country. And so I think we should all just, repeal and tell Trump, hey, you need to abolish the IRS. We need to abolish all taxes. And well, let's hit reset.
The theme of maximum, trying to tax you maximum and trying to work minimum.
Yeah.
So that, that really needs to end. I mean, life is getting harder for all of us. We really have no place in communities or society for people who are trying to laze out at this point. Like, no, that's not, that's not fair to the rest of us. That's not cool. And to just simply try to do as little work as possible while trying to squeeze these people as much as possible. That dog don't hunt. Am I right?
Yep. Fair enough.
That's right. And people are tired of it. Okay. Because the average Mary and Joe Dokes is pedaling as fast as they can right now. And nobody in government ever wants to use the word no. Somebody comes for more money, like the answer has to be at some point no, because someone's got to pay the bills. And I mean, we have plenty of money here in California, but you look around at where they're spending it, And every time I hit a pothole, it's like, why am I paying over $1 a gallon in a gas tax when they got potholes everywhere? Why we build this damn structure in the middle of Central Valley for this train that's going nowhere?
Train to
nowhere.
nowhere.
Look at where they just waste money on stupid shit. And the average guy's going, hey, you want to put another rock in my backpack for what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, go sniff around. I mean, the fraud that is so easy to see here in California, it's mind-boggling. And I don't see anybody in the governor's race here, Jason, on the D side, who wants to put a spotlight on the fraud in their own goddamn party. And I'm a Democrat. It's like, dude, you can smell it from over here. Please go fix this.
I'll tell you what, Dale, I think before the election, I think you're going to register as a Republican because I don't see how you can hang out with it with a D behind your name. But nonetheless, we're going to go into our next commercial and we're going to be right back.
Rescheduling cannabis, which was classified as more dangerous than fentanyl. Trump's action will destroy the cartel's illicit black market, expand medical research, and ensure seniors and veterans safely receive the care they need. Thank President Trump for delivering on another America First promise.
And stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. And YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com. And please make sure that you're following us on X and Rumble, as those are the two most stable platforms on the metaverse.
Under President Trump, America is back. Trump's delivered the largest tax cut in history, putting more money in our pockets and restored America's economic dominance. Promises made, promises kept. Now it's time to fulfill another promise from President Trump and reschedule cannabis, which supports over 400,000 jobs and creates billions of dollars in economic growth. Reschedule cannabis and stack another win, Mr. President. America First Agriculture Action, Inc. is responsible for the contents of this advertising.
And we are back, and we're going to roll right into Mr. Nate Winokur. Nate had a lab, and then the DCC said, oh, you know what? You're not testing right, and we're going to take your lab license, even though they had no justification or no real authorization or justification to take his license. So now Nate is forced to teach people all about the nuances of testing in his new program, Teaching Bud, available on YouTube and all other streaming platforms. It is none other than the man, the brain himself, Mr. Nate Winokur.
Thank you for the intro there, Jason. And hi, everybody. I'm Nate, and really appreciate you guys and listening and all that fun stuff. Just working to be your everyday friendly cannabis science specialist. So today's article comes from News Nation, mentioning vaping linked to faster onset of cannabis disorder, the study finds. So what we have here. It starts with using cannabis vape cartridges could lead to faster developing symptoms of an increasingly common marijuana-related disorder. I'm going to say cannabis-related disorder, according to a recent study. Cannabinoid hypermesis syndrome, CHS, causes recurring bouts of severe stomach pain, nausea, and vomiting in some long-time chronic cannabis users. In research published on March 5th in Sage Journals, more than 1,000 participants suspected of having been diagnosed with CHS were surveyed. Those who exclusively vape, reporting developing systems of CHS sooner and smoked more frequently than those who exclusively smoke flower. We're going to get back to that one because I think that's really interesting. I've also been following CHS for a minute now. I've even done previous stories on it. And a lot of these findings, even as subsequent to original findings, seem to be hammering away at the same things. And that's a big underline right there. That flower smokers don't really seem to be widely affected, but people who use these sometimes overly processed products, such as cannabis vapes, which the vast majority of them that are out there are processed to it's the most processed version of a cannabis product out there. And that's where a lot of these concerns are coming from, that and comorbidities that the patients have. But let me get back on track here. About 96% of respondents reported using cannabis daily, and 45% reported using 6 or more times a day around the time they started to develop CHS symptoms, supporting the notion that long-term, frequent use of cannabis is a key contributor to CHS. The study also found that women experienced more and longer-lasting CHS symptoms than men. It's becoming an increasingly common concern for doctors, with an estimated 2.75 million people affected per year in the U.S., and hospital visits for the condition doubling between 2017 and 2021. In Virginia, emergency department visits linked to CHS have increased nearly 29% over a 5-year period, according to data from the Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association. That is it for this, article side of things and some of those hard-hitting facts that they're trying to put in there. A lot of these are accurate, but in my humble opinion, are doing a very shallow job of trying to paint the overall picture that we're looking at. See, cannabis hypermesis syndrome, CHS, that's some serious stuff. The short version is, if you smoke cannabis, there's a version of tipping the boat over and having smoked too much cannabis and having this near irreversible type of disorder that basically accompanies you getting high with you feeling like crap. No fun, right? It's the worst, for anybody who loves cannabis, worst case scenario, absolute nightmare fuel. So why else is this something worth pointing out? Something that, depending on where the articles come from, if it's pro-cannabis typically or not, but something that's also typically reflected in most studies, is that CHS is linked to vape use, a lot of vape use. And there are other scenarios too, such as edibles, which it is linked to as well. In most of these scenarios, the type of extraction that is used for the cannabis and how that extracted cannabis is introduced to the consumer is fairly unique in its practice. Now, cannabis oils. There are a few different ways of making cannabis oils. There are unrefined oils, like high-quality plants that goes through a very clean extraction process to make a very high quality, sometimes what might be referred to as a dabbable oil. Might have gone through an extraction like a rosin extraction, usually live rosin, or through a butane or solvent extraction, often referred to as BHO. A lot of the high quality vape pens will even use these versions of either live resin, which is the BHO, butane, hash oil, and the rosin, which is essentially a physical process, whereas the valuable components are squeezed out. One way or another, we essentially have versions of being able to consume cannabis, which are generally regarded as low levels of processing. There are other versions which extract cannabis and further refine cannabis and filter out components from the cannabis, and essentially can go as far as chemically changing the product and essentially arriving into something that is just a pure cannabis oil, often referred to as distillate, basically meaning distilled cannabis, kind of like how you can have a pure water that's distilled water. This is pure cannabis that is distilled cannabis, going through a rather similar type of process as you would to be able to go through this often final step of refinement. What's crazy about this is you take this oil, which is for the most part almost pure THC, usually like between 91 and 94% THC, and you're either going to introduce it to edibles, or sometimes people will formulate it with flavors and then shove it back into vape pens. That second scenario where it's formulated with flavors and shoved into said vape pens is insanely common. That is, if I had to make a guess, and from what I've read, where most of the concerns related to this condition seem to be emanating from are people's preference towards these high THC, over-processed, and then, essentially non-cannabis flavored versions of these products. It is truly the over-processed goods of the cannabis industry. And I now relate this somewhat to certain other overprocessed goods that people have a habit of putting in their body, just overprocessed foods and what have you. These have been linked in the last 10 years to disorder after disorder after disorder. Things like dementia and Alzheimer's, and basically the breaking down of the brain and the body as related to overprocessed foods. Now, there haven't been direct connections made here, but we are starting to see more and more impact of overprocessed foods, and that being proven. And now we seem to be right on the threshold of understanding a version of cannabis products, which may in themselves be described as overprocessed and may in that same sense not be bringing about the most healthy of human conditions. These are, of course, just some senses I've had and not absolutely proven, but I'll tell you, I'm looking out for this kind of stuff. That's what I think. Doing what Dale's going to do. He throws it back out to see what everybody else thinks. So let me hear what you guys think, because this to me is a really interesting area. Of course, nightmare fuel for your average stoner, but at the same time, what are you smoking? Are you smoking something that's virtually unprocessed like flour, or are you smoking something that's heavily processed like this distilled cannabis mixed with these botanical flavors and then shoved into a vape pen and hope for the best?
Well, Nate, this just, oh man, this whole CHS thing, I think this may shed some light that a lot of it is from vape pens, not even from actually consuming flower. There might be,
it seems once you pass
there.
that point, it exacerbates it, but you may never get to that point if you're just consuming flour.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a flower consumer.
Waters here are deep. And Nate, I think you just touched upon a couple of things, but if you're going to study CHS, you need to do a lot more investigation as the people who are claiming that they have CHS, and then work out the diagnostic profiles for these folks. Because, and this is my experience, the people that have come to me and said they have CHS, they were using these high processed products, and they were also, in a personality sense, pretty neurotic. Okay? And if you haven't met any of them, they're out there. They're pretty neurotic as a personality. Now, what, if any, part does that play in this? Because as you know, Nate, the midbrain has the vomiting center. The insula is the part of the brain that really triggers the vomiting. And what is it that triggers that sort of a cycle? And nobody understands the placebo effect, how the brain can make you feel better, make you feel worse, things like that. There's a lot tied up in here. And so right now, flower versus vape, okay, there's some criteria to look at. But if you can get to folks who claim they have this and work them up for any other potential problems they might have, and I think it would be helpful for a physician who had someone sit in front of them and say, I smoke my vape and I can't stop puking, to have something to offer them, number one, but then to try to unravel what's going on. Because what I've seen in our industry is that the people who get this, they now think that they're somehow important because they're beating the drum of this. And it's like an influencer. Okay, now I'm getting important because of this. And if you've never been around, I mean, my father-in-law was a psychiatrist. Molly did her residency in psychiatry. I can't help but look at this and think there's something going on there that I think needs to be tethered out a bit. And it may just be my experience and perhaps my bias. We all got biases.
I don't.
But, well, yeah, that's a bias right there. Right, Nate? But the waters are deep, and people, lazy thinkers, want a binary answer. Oh, if you smoke flower, it won't. Well, my daughter had this problem. My advice to her was, stop smoking that shit. And guess what? It went away. It wasn't rocket science. And if you get this and you think, well, I should be able to smoke, hit my vape 6 times a day, and it's making you puke all day, any medical practitioner is going to look you in the eye and say, my advice is stop hitting your goddamn vape.
Stop hitting your vape, stupid. Yeah.
This ain't rocket science.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. I mean, and I'm gonna say, I think these vapes, the materials and stuff that they're made with, I think a lot of those metals are leaching into the cannabis, and that is why we are experiencing.
Here's a fun fact: when you are, depending on what type of cartridges you're utilizing, but for a lot of them out there, when you are the manufacturer of these cartridges and tasked with then getting them sampled and tested to make sure that they're safe, typically you want to get them into testing as early as possible, because that leaching of heavy metals starts virtually immediately.
Yeah.
And the longer you leave that oil in there that's about to be tested to be exposed to that leaching, the more likely it is that that product is going to fail.
Yep.
Since the heavy metals, I mean, those are no joke right there. The action limit for those is less than 1 microgram per gram. That's it's half of 1 part per million. Yeah. So it gets pretty extreme right there. So in that sense, yeah, you can't F around. Most people know that, and most people have figured out how to engineer their products around the laws in order to not be beholden to those types of limitations with products and with hardware and stuff. Double worse if you're leaving your vape pens in your car, and if that car is just cooking during the day and cooling down and cooking and cooling down, that's not good for any cannabis product. But if you want to see how in like a lab environment, if you want to guess how we stress test stuff and how we basically get the leaching to happen even faster, we do exactly that. We heat it up and cool it down a couple of cycles. So not good for anybody.
Yeah. See, look at that. Look at that. Well, this is fantastic information, and we're getting a little bit closer to the cause of CHS, even though, it's so stupid, so dumb, these people. But nonetheless, we're going to go to our final commercial, and we're going to be right back.
As bad as Democrats,
The backstabbing rhino Republicans.
President Trump has fought and delivered, but liberal young Kim is a Trump hater. Kim voted to censure President Trump, but voted against censoring Adam Schiff.
I don't work for President Trump. I will oppose him in the strongest terms. I'm not running for the party of Trump.
Republicans proudly stand with President Trump, but not Trump-hating liberal young Kim. Americans for Security is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And we're back. All right, I got 2 final stories for you guys, and full transparency. This first one is a little longer, Dale, but it's very juicy. Okay, and the last one is extra juicy too. Just so you know, that's the juiciest for last. Okay, but
Juicy Thursday, right? There we go.
Lots of juice. Lots of juice, baby. Because a GARBERVILLE man, along with 4 others, are indicted on cannabis and money laundering charges in Nebraska, you guys. That's right. A Southern Humboldt man, Evan Bowen, age 45, along with 4 other Californians, faces federal charges in Nebraska related to the distribution of marijuana for sale and money laundering related to the sales. According to a press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Nebraska, the indictment is the result of an investigation dating back to September of 2019. Legal documents allege that Bowen and alleged co-conspirators moved over 1 million pounds and received millions of dollars in drug proceeds. It is not clear how much of the money and of the marijuana and money mentioned in the legal documents law enforcement is attempting to tie to the GARBERVILLE man who is scarcely mentioned in the affidavit. But Bowen pleaded not guilty to all charges and is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. And according to an affidavit filed by a special agent with Homeland Security investigations, the case stems from the Lancaster County, Nebraska Sheriff's Office arrest of Tyler Gooch in September of 2019. The affidavit states that Gooch's vehicle contained 90 pounds of marijuana, 3,001 THC vape cartridges, and 30 pounds of marijuana shatter. Homeland Security's Major Crimes Financial Task Force then continued to investigate, and the affidavit says they identified the man that Gooch was supposed to deliver the marijuana products to, and in January of 2020, law enforcement said they began following a vehicle that contained 2 men who briefly met with the man who is a cooperating defendant, but was believed to have been the intended recipient of Gooch's shipment and is not named. Law enforcement claimed they observed the driver of the vehicle and fail to signal a lane change and follow another vehicle too closely. They pulled the vehicle over and eventually detained the two occupants, Eric Osborne Thibodeau, born in 1968 of Malibu, California, and Frederick Robney, born in 1976. According to the affidavit, officers searched the vehicle and say they located $200,403. Allegedly, the money was found in a black plastic trash bag, and the U.S. currency was rubber banded together in bundles and had a strong odor of marijuana emitting from them and from the bag. The U.S. currency pre-tested positive for THC. Law enforcement also searched the residence where the cooperating defendant had met with the two men and allegedly seized 111 pounds of marijuana, 32 pounds of THC shatter, and 5 pounds of THC oil. The cooperating defendant claimed that the marijuana products were delivered to him by Thibodeau, Thibodo, and he also allegedly admitted that the marijuana products seized from Gooch's in September were supposed to have gone to him. Someone's snitching. Electronic surveillance of Thibodeau that followed the January stop led law enforcement to a Fast Box warehouse in New York State. Law enforcement investigated the company and found there were warehouses in 7 states, according to the affidavit. In late March 2023, 24-hour electronic surveillance was established on multiple Fast Box warehouses, and the investigation has revealed no evidence that Fast Box did any legitimate business whatsoever. According to the affidavit, on April 11th of 2020, an employee at the New York City Fastbox warehouse loaded crates into a third-party trailer being towed by a semi, and 2 days later, a Homeland Security Investigations Task Force officer stopped the semi near Oklahoma City for allegedly failing to maintain its lane of travel, and after a canine indicated the odor of narcotics coming from within the trailer. Officers searched it and said they located approximately $3.9 million of suspected narcotics proceeds secreted in one of the Fast Box crates. And the money was packaged and marked with different symbols and or acronyms, which law enforcement believed indicated that the currency was also to be divided up between multiple people. When this large sum allegedly indicating a widespread operation on May 7th of 2020, Homeland Security Investigations executed multiple search warrants on Fastbox locations and Fastbox containers and Fastbox employee residences and Fastbox storage units in California, Chicago, Cincinnati, Kansas City, and New York. Allegedly, Homeland Security Investigations seized over 55,000 vials of marijuana byproduct, THC vape pens, and over 1.6 million of suspected proceeds from marijuana-related sales during the service of these search warrants. Using information gained during these raids, according to the affidavit, Homeland Security Investigations determined that David Lederman, born in 1975 from Los Angeles, was in charge of the organization, and allegedly the text messages from seized phones and the subpoenaed bank records for Fastbox indicated bulk cash of approximately $1.4 million were deposited by members and employees between 2017 and 2020. Members and employees of the organization would deposit small, predetermined amounts into Fastbox accounts via ATM at multiple banks in the Los Angeles, California area. And according to the affidavit, Homeland Security Investigations identified another man, James Reha, born in 1974, as Lederman's partner, and the two used Fastbox to move marijuana and marijuana proceeds between California and the other Fastbox locations. One cooperating defendant even alleged that he had been working for the two men since 1998 in a drug trafficking organization, and the affidavit stated that this person estimated Lederman and Reha produced over 1 million pounds of marijuana between 1998 and 2014, and the majority shipped to New York City. The cooperating defendant estimated each bulk currency shipment from New York to California in the Fastbox containers was at least $1 million. The cooperating defendant indicated the container that was seized on April 13, 2020 was a larger shipment. And according to the press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office of the District of Nebraska, Bowen and Thibodeau are facing serious penalties in a quote. Count 1 charges conspiracy to distribute 1,000 kilograms of marijuana. The maximum penalty is at least 10 years and up to life in prison, a fine of up to $10 million, and a term of supervised release of at least 5 years and up to life, and a $100 special assessment. $100 special assessment. Count 2 charges money laundering, and count 3 charges conspiracy to commit money laundering. If convicted of either count 2 or 3, the possible penalty is 20 years imprisonment, a $500,000 fine, and up to 5 years of supervised release, and a $100 special assessment, of course. The press release states David Letterman, David Bose, and James Reha were also charged in the same indictment. Lederman and Bose were arrested in California and have yet to make an appearance in the District of Nebraska, and Reha has not been arrested. Gooch was sentenced in February of 2020 for his part and released in August of 2021. Oh, that must have been the snitch. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. Wow.
Welcome to the black market.
Bro, this is like an old school 80s story. You know what I'm saying? Like happening now.
No, this is
come on, Jason.
This happens. No, this happens a lot and all the time. A lot of people who got taxed out of being able to participate in the licensed market. They're, didn't stop doing what they were good at. They continued to produce cannabis, and they found new supply chains. And remember mentioning earlier in the episode here that more than 50%, well over 50%, probably closer to somewhere around 75, 80% of cannabis sales here in California are made are made from illicit sources. I mean, when you hear about somebody having Ziploc baggies full of already loaded vape pen carts, that's not a part of licensed supply chain. And
hold on, Nate. I'm really wondering, since they had all of these millions of pounds and everything, if they found any manifests from any distributors here in California.
There are sources that have been out there for a while. There's even been certain people in our industry, like certain retail dispensary owners that have, called out certain grow operations, suggesting that they're producing way more stuff than they're actually selling to the licensed market. The idea of even being able to broker these, and what were these called? Like fast boxes that were going on.
Yeah.
I know essentially of, and if you're in the shipping businesses, you would call this kind of stuff fulfillment. I know of fulfillment operations that start in California and then happen all around the country, because that's where this stuff goes, whether it's grown from a particular farm that isn't releasing stuff into licensed industry, or if it's just simply being brokered from larger operations that have the means and have figured out long before now how to be able to divert their product to whatever sources they want to. These are the results of this is the dark side, the behind the curtain side of what the California industry unfortunately has allowed to happen, based on levels of restriction, based on pricing people out of the industry, based on very poor hygiene when it comes to cleaning up the black market. All of these things have essentially led to path of least resistance for people who participate in cannabis and who try to maximize what they're able to do. And if there's a level of restriction, I think this is a point that all of us make in our own ways. I know Dale does. I know you do. I certainly don't shut up about it. But whenever you restrict people from doing stuff, you're not forbidding them from or you're not limiting their ability to participate in that action. You're simply giving them a brain teaser about how are they going to do what they were going to do anyway, but now circumvent whatever they need to in order to make things happen. And again, this is what the black market actually looks like, if you're talking about California, at least here, and I'd warrant for other places which are heavily involved in supply chain. Like, everybody, look at this. This is serious ish right here. Like, this is what happens. This isn't even like a weird one-off. This is a bunch of my friends who got priced out of the industry and who are no longer able to participate in the common ways, and this is what they do instead. For some people, they do it on both sides of the fence. They have their licensed business and they maximize that, and everything else they need to do to pay their bills and save their money, they're going to push everything else in this other direction. And it's just like they have two different jobs that have a common basis. Hell, I've even walked into one of the most major extraction operations in California, and they showed me one half of the room, and they said, this is for all the licensed stuff, because, you know, pesticides and stuff like that are an important deal with the licensed stuff. And they turned around and they showed me a mirror scenario, and they said, this is for all the unlicensed stuff. And they basically had a mirror of two sides of this giant room. One side was full of pesticides and the other side wasn't, because that was the reality for an extraction operation, is to be able to keep their head above water. They literally split their operation in two. Half of it's pesticide friendly, the other half is actually licensed friendly.
Not surprised.
Like, again, everyone, like, this is how it works. And it's not like this is a bunch of stoners trying to get away with shit. This is a long process of years and years of overregulation, overtaxing, punishing the wrong people, and giving people that justification of layer over layer over layer of, this is what I have to do to pay for my family. This is what I have to do to help my employees pay for their families. This is what I have to do to not lose potentially millions to tens of millions of dollars that have been dropped in by investors who are counting on me. I have no other choice but to do these things. And when this type of story, Jason, that you just read comes out, this is not a surprise to anybody who's sitting around in the operation. I mean, it's sad. You don't want to see people lose their ass, and a whole side of how much work and how many employees and how many other things can I pile onto this to say this is ridiculous, it shouldn't exist, and this is just all echoes of a stupid ass drug war and how it's impacting everything, including day-to-day business, and what happens as a result.
What do you guys say, Dale? Someone's snitching.
I can't rat anybody out because I'm an attorney.
Yeah.
But you're right, Nate. This happens every day, all day long. Okay. I still have clients who keep money in my retainer in case they get stopped on the road in Iowa or Nebraska. They call me and I help them find a criminal attorney. I stay away from what they're doing, but I certainly, I'm conscious and I'm aware that this is happening on a daily basis. And the ones that divert it from the legal market, for whatever way, whatever reason, if you got a distribution license in California, you're not looking real close, and all you have to do is just say we destroyed it, and it ends up in New York. And beyond that, the old black market never went away. Never did. I mean, my days of running weed around California 50 years ago, those people are still there because this is just too easy to do. Okay? And you're not going to fix it by law enforcement, because you just cherry pick them. You get these guys already ratting each other out. But my experience with these guys is that they look at this so lackadaisically that you find text messages where they're texting people. Hey, I'm showing up with this. You got the money ready. It's like, dude, you fucking idiot. Why would you be doing this? Because it's so easy to do. They're complacent about it. But when the feds get you and you're looking at 10 to 20 years, life becomes different.
Yep.
But as soon as you take them off the street, trust me, someone's walking right in and taking their gig over.
Yep, 100%.
And that's why whenever I see these politicians want to keep raising taxes, it's like, can you not understand this? Did your mom drop you on your head a lot as a child? What happened to you? You can't see this. The black market is just out there waiting. Like, hey, raise it. We don't care. We'll make more money.
Yep.
The only way to fix this, in my opinion, is to take all the straps off and let people, if you want to be an entrepreneur and open a weed business, it should be something you can do. You pass a background check. There you go. If you can't compete, you're done. The black market cannot compete with that.
Yep.
Okay, but no one seems to want to do that, which makes me wonder how much influence does the black market have on these policymakers who just won't do what seems to be the obvious first step to fix this shit.
It needs
Asking
to be
the right questions.
It needs to be more about weed for the people. That's what it ultimately comes down to. And I promised you guys I have one more juicy story for you guys. Are you guys ready? All right. Well, Trulieve sues Florida over restrictive medical marijuana marketing rule. That's right. Trulieve's Florida's largest medical marijuana company with over 160 dispensaries statewide has filed a lawsuit challenging a state emergency rule that sharply limits how licensed operators can market and advertise their products. The lawsuit targets Rule 64ER25-6, a Florida Department of Health regulation that took effect on December 31st and gave medical marijuana treatment centers 90 days to come into compliance. According to the Contemporaneous reporting, Trulieve argues that the rule imposes draconian, irreparable conditions, while a separate administrative challenge involving multiple medical marijuana companies is also moving forward. Administrative law judge Elizabeth MacArthur has reportedly scheduled a week-long hearing in that case beginning June 22nd. The rule significantly narrows the ways companies can promote their businesses. Public-facing marketing is largely limited to tightly restricted exterior signage, materials inside dispensaries that are not visible from outside, and certain internet-based activity. It also bars a wide range of content, including material that implies adult use, depicts marijuana consumption, and uses celebrities or influencers, or includes imagery seen as appealing to children. Previously used advertising materials are not grandfathered in under the rule, and the restrictions go further online. Social media accounts must be registered with the Office of Medical Marijuana Use. Paid or targeted digital advertising requires prior approval, and mobile apps may not allow product reservations or purchases. Companies can also be held responsible for the actions of outside marketing vendors working on their behalf. The case could become one of the most closely watched marijuana industry legal fights in Florida this year, with potentially broad implications for how the state's medical marijuana businesses communicate with patients and compete in an increasingly regulated market. You guys, wow. They're totally getting screwed. They're going to totally probably lose this because the state does have the right to impose however they want to impose, whatever they want to impose, whenever they want to impose it. But I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Well, the problem is it's commercial speech, which is not the same as individual speech or freedom of the press. And this is federally illegal. So, I mean, it's the standpoint here is that if you're a business, you're given status as a person, but you're not the same as a living, breathing human being. Mm-hmm. And if what they're controlling is commercial speech, advertising your business, I think they're pissing up a rope here. They're not going to get very far with it.
I don't think so. They are either.
They have a right to do this. Mm-hmm. You can't advertise to minors. How do you stop them from doing that?
Yep.
It's muddled, and I don't think they're going to win here. But lawyers like to tell you can win because they want to make money.
Hey, yeah, I guarantee you they're not representing Kim Rivers and Trulieve pro bono. I can guarantee you that.
No. Yeah. I charge for my services, and when you're making money, you're going to pay me if you want me to help you. And otherwise, you can.
If she got millions upon millions of dollars to put behind voter initiatives, maybe she should put a voter initiative behind the thing to allow for you guys, for the dispensaries to be able to advertise freely. That would be interesting to watch and see what the people vote on that.
Well, but the problem with these initiatives, they've become prohibitively expensive. We all have good ideas. I mean, I'd like one to treat marijuana as alcohol is treated, mm-hmm. but you got to go out and raise $20 to $40 million to put it on the ballot. And, that's hard to do. Who's going to pay for that? Mm. And I like democracy at its base, which is a referendum. Ask a simple question and then, amend your constitution and all the laws have to follow it. It sounds great till you got to start raising money or find a rich person to finance one of these things. It's just difficult. And I just think they're going to get their ass kicked. So yeah, go ahead and give them money and go in there, but you can't go to federal court because this is federally illegal. They didn't want to hear from you.
Yeah, they're going to FAFO.
Day one.
Yeah, she's going to FAFO on this one. Any thoughts, Nate?
I just can't figure out if Florida likes cannabis. Seems like the people do, but the people that they put into office don't.
Well,
so it's an interesting merry-go-round that seems like it could stop, but doesn't. And so it just, to me, seems like, although I can see why you'd want to be in Florida as a company, the market is fantastic, and people there are in a great mood with cannabis, and it seems to help everybody. And the numbers there, especially for reduction in alcohol consumption, seems to be amazing. But at the same time, I mean, talk about just whatever the political complex equivalent is of cutting off your nose to spite your face for the sake of barring a cannabis, and in this case, cannabis companies, from being able to really progress. And it just, I mean, nobody has an answer for that. I'm just literally just meandering through thoughts at this point, not really having anything going other than this is just one more on this weird ass scorecard in my head of, does Florida actually like cannabis? And for you cannabis people out there, why do you support people who are against the things that you like? Like, where's the, what's the end game here? And just, obviously, these are just, thoughts. I have no other bearing other than, this little bit of why and how. And what would you do, Jason? What do you think about all that?
Well, I will tell you this much, Nate, that OG Grandma 420 in the chat says Kim cashing out some stock yesterday is a far better story. So maybe her cashing out that stock is how she was able to pay for this lawsuit, Dale.
Yeah. On the notion of a different story, real quick, super quick tangent, I promise everybody.
Okay.
Jason, have we covered this week that there's been, unfortunately, a pulse in the news, and I read through it, and it's a big absence of evidence kind of run through of what it's been, but numerous journals and science and medical journals have picked it up this week, suggesting that cannabis isn't so good for numerous health and mental impairment conditions, going as far as to say, if you have anxiety, don't worry about all of these rumors that cannabis is good for you. Like, MF, I have anxiety, and cannabis makes me tolerable to the people I love, who I want to love me.
So a lot of those medical stories, Nate, we cover on Fridays when we have the doctors here, and we did cover.
Ramp it up to that.
We did cover a story about that last week, and I do think that we will have another similar story about that this week. And Nate, if you want to join us for tomorrow's episode, you're more than welcome to join us for tomorrow's episode if your time is available. But that we leave best up to the doctors, because I like to hear their opinions, because otherwise we're all just speculators on the medical stuff. You know what I mean?
Like it.
Yes. And on that, well, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. And big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. And thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. Thank you to Cloud Media Partners, Elias and Gabriel. They're somewhere in the metaverse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.